out of here!
He kicked out his 6-month pregnant daughter. 3 years later, she returned and left him in shock. If this story touched your heart, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more shocking real-life stories. Don't forget to share. The evening sun sank slowly over Lagos, Nigeria, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson. The city buzzed with life, the sound of kekinapep horns, traders shouting prices in the marketplace, and the thick smell of roasted suya filling the air. But inside the grand compound of Chief Adewale, silence hung heavy like a storm about to break. Chief Adewale was a man of great influence in Lagos. Known as a successful businessman and a respected elder in the community, he carried himself with pride and authority. His words were final, his decisions unquestionable. The Adewale family name meant power, and he would do anything to protect it. But tonight, his world was about to shake. Inside the spacious living room, Zainab, his 20-year-old daughter, stood nervously, her hands trembling. Her eyes, usually bright with youthful innocence, were now clouded with fear. She wore a simple Ankara dress, her hair tied neatly, but her heart pounded in her chest. Across from her, Chief Adewale sat on a leather armchair, his eyes sharp, his brows furrowed. Beside him was his second wife, Madame Funke, whose face carried a permanent scowl. "Zainab," Chief Adewale's deep voice cut through the silence. "Is what I heard true?" Zainab swallowed hard. "Papa, I wanted to tell you earlier, but I didn't know how you would—" "Answer me!" he barked, slamming his cane against the tiled floor. Tears welled in Zainab's eyes. She placed a trembling hand on her stomach and whispered, "Yes, Papa, I am with child." The words seemed to freeze the air. Madame Funke gasped dramatically, clutching her wrapper. Iwu, a whole Chief Adewale's daughter, pregnant out of wedlock? This is shame. Chief Adewale's face turned crimson. His pride, his reputation, everything he valued shattered in an instant. He rose to his feet, towering over his daughter. "Who is responsible for this disgrace?" he thundered. "Which useless boy has destroyed my family's name?" Zainab's lips quivered. "His name is Kunle. Papa, he is a good man. Kunle?" Adewale's voice boomed through the compound. "That mechanic boy from the lower street? You dare bring shame to this family with such a worthless man? Have you forgotten who you are, Zainab? You are the daughter of Chief Adewale. I will never allow this filth to stain my bloodline." Zainab dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Papa, please. I love him. He promised to marry me. Please don't cast me out. I beg you." But Chief Adewale's heart was hard as stone. To him, love was nothing compared to honor. He waved his hand furiously. "Pack your things this very night," he said coldly. "From today, you are no longer my daughter. Leave my house before the cock crows, or I will throw you out with my own hands." Zainab gasped, clutching her stomach protectively. "Papa, please, where will I go? I have no one." "Go to your mechanic lover," Madame Funke sneered. "Since you claim to love him so much, let him take care of you. This house is not a home for harlots." Those words pierced Zainab's heart like knives. She looked at her father one last time, hoping for even a flicker of mercy in his eyes. But he turned away, his jaw tight with anger. That night, as the moonlight spread over Lagos, Zainab quietly packed her belongings. A few clothes in a polythene bag, her Bible, and a single pair of sandals. She stood by the door of the mansion, her body trembling, her unborn child pressing against her belly. Before stepping out, she whispered through her tears, "Papa, one day you will see me again, and on that day I will not be the weak girl you cast aside tonight." With those words, she walked into the dark, uncertain night. The sounds of the bustling city swallowed her small figure as she disappeared into the crowd. And so began Zainab's journey, a journey of pain, survival, and resilience. A journey that would return her to this very house 3 years later in a way that would shock her father more than he could ever imagine. The night air in Lagos was heavy, thick with the sounds of generators humming, hawkers calling out their last sales, and distant Afrobeat rhythms pouring out of roadside bars. Zainab walked barefoot along the crowded streets, clutching her small bag tightly to her chest. Her eyes were swollen from tears, her body weak, and her heart heavy with fear. Everywhere she looked, life continued as if nothing had happened. Traders packed up their goods, bus conductors shouted, "Ojuelegba, Ojuelegba," while slapping the sides of yellow Danfo buses, and tired workers rushed home after a long day. But for Zainab, the world felt like it had turned its back on her. Her feet carried her aimlessly until she reached the dark corner of a marketplace, where she finally sat on a wooden bench. She pressed her hands against her stomach and whispered, "My child, it is just you and me now." You hast filer's size. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she remembered her father's angry face, his words cutting through her heart. "From today, you are no longer my daughter." God, why? She prayed under her breath. Why would Papa abandon me like this? Where will I go? Who will help me? Her mind turned to Kunle, the man she had trusted with her heart. The young mechanic who had promised to marry her, who swore he would stand by her. She pulled out her small Nokia phone and dialed his number with trembling fingers. The phone rang, once, twice, then a click. "Hello?" Kunle's tired voice answered. Zainab's heart leapt. "Kunle, it's me. I have been thrown out of the house. Papa knows everything. Please, I need you." There was a long silence on the line. "Zainab," Kunle finally said, his voice low, "I told you this would happen. Your father will never accept me. I don't have the means to take care of you now. Things are hard. My workshop is barely surviving." Her throat tightened. "But Kunle, you promised me. You swore you would be with me no matter what." Kunle sighed heavily. "I didn't know it would come to this. Maybe it's best if you go back and beg your father." The line went dead. Zainab stared at the phone in disbelief, her tears falling freely now. The one person she thought would be her safe place had abandoned her. Alone, pregnant, and with no home, she felt the weight of despair pressing down on her chest. Just then, a gentle voice called out, "My daughter, why are you crying here alone at this hour?" Zainab looked up to see an elderly woman, wrapped in a faded wrapper and carrying a basket of unsold vegetables. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes were kind. I have nowhere to go," Zainab stammered, wiping her face. The woman studied her for a moment, then sighed deeply. My name is Mama Chica. I may not have much, but no pregnant woman should sleep on the streets of Lagos. Come, follow me." Zainab hesitated, fear and shame battling in her heart, but with no other choice, she rose and followed the woman through the winding alleys of Mushin, one of Lagos's busiest districts. They arrived at a small, worn-down bungalow, its walls cracked and its zinc roof patched with old tarpaulin. Inside, the room was simple, a wooden bed, a kerosene lantern, and a few plastic chairs. Yet it radiated warmth. "You can sleep here," Mama Chica said, pointing to a mat spread on the floor. "Tomorrow we will find something for you to eat. For tonight, rest. You and the baby need strength." Zainab knelt and grabbed the old woman's hands. "Thank you, Mama. May God bless you." That night, as she lay on the thin mat, Zainab whispered to her unborn child, "This is not the end. We will survive. I will not let the world break us." The days turned into weeks. Zainab began helping Mama Chica in the market, selling vegetables and sometimes washing clothes for neighbors to earn a few naira. It was hard. The Lagos sun was merciless, the streets noisy and unforgiving. Yet, every night she returned with aching feet but a determined heart. Her pregnancy grew heavier, and with it, the stares and whispers of the people around her. Some mocked her, some pitied her, but she learned to ignore them. One afternoon, while struggling to carry a heavy basin of tomatoes, she felt a sharp pain in her back. She stumbled, nearly falling, but Mama Chica rushed to her side. "Zainab, you must be careful," she scolded. "You are no longer just one person. You carry a future in you. Promise me you will not give up." Zainab nodded, tears in her eyes. "I promise, Mama, I will fight. For him. For my son." Though her heart still ached for the love of her father and the betrayal of Kunle, Zainab began to build strength she never knew she had. Each morning, as the sun rose over Lagos, she whispered a prayer. "One day I will rise. One day the world will know my name." And deep inside, she believed it. Because this was only the beginning of her transformation. The heavy rains pounded the tin roof of Mama Chica's small house, turning the dirt streets outside into muddy rivers. The storm had swallowed Lagos that night, but inside the tiny room, an even greater storm raged. Zainab lay on the thin mat, drenched in sweat, her face twisted with pain. She clutched her swollen belly, her cries echoing through the cramped space. "Mama, it's coming! I can't!" she screamed, tears running down her cheeks. Mama Chica rushed to her side with a basin of hot water and a bundle of clean cloths. "Breathe, my daughter, breathe. Push when the pain comes. God is with you." The room smelled of kerosene from the flickering lantern, mixed with the sharp scent of herbs Mama Chica had boiled. Thunder roared outside, and each lightning flash illuminated the desperation on Zainab's face. Hours passed like eternity. Zainab's cries grew weaker, her body trembling from exhaustion. But finally, with one last scream, the cry of a newborn pierced through the storm. A baby boy. Zainab collapsed back on the mat, sobbing as Mama Chica wrapped the tiny child in cloth. The old woman smiled, lifting the baby gently. "He is strong, Zainab, a strong boy. Look at him already. He has your eyes." Zainab reached out with shaking hands, pulling her son close to her chest. Tears flowed freely as she whispered, "My David, my miracle. You will never know rejection. I swear, I will protect you, no matter what." For the first time in weeks, her heart felt warmth. Though the world had turned its back on her, this child had given her a new purpose. The months that followed were hard. Raising a child in the chaos of Lagos was not easy, especially with little money and no father in sight. Zainab woke before dawn to fetch water from the community borehole, balancing a heavy bucket on her head while carrying baby David on her back. She worked in the market with Mama Chica, selling vegetables by day, sewing torn clothes by night. The whispers and judgment of neighbors were constant. "That is the girl who brought shame to her father's house," they muttered. But Zainab learned to ignore them. Each time she looked at David's innocent face, she found strength. Her talent with needle and thread began to catch attention. One day, a wealthy woman from the neighborhood, Madame Ifioma, noticed a dress Zainab had stitched for Mama Chica. "Who made this?" Madame Ifioma asked, running her fingers over the neat embroidery. Zainab hesitated, then raised her hand shyly. "I did, Ma." The woman studied her for a moment. You have skill. Come to my shop tomorrow. I will give you work." That opportunity was the beginning of a new chapter. Within months, Zainab began earning more than she ever imagined. She started sewing uniforms for school children, Ankara dresses for market women, and even agbadas for local chiefs. Her small table in the corner of Mama Chica's compound became a buzzing mini workshop. But Zainab was not just working for herself. Every naira she earned, she saved carefully. She dreamed of opening her own tailoring shop one day, a place where women like her, abandoned and rejected, could find dignity through work. David grew quickly, his laughter filling the tiny house with joy. Though life was hard, Zainab never let him feel the weight of their struggles. At night, she sang him lullabies, whispering promises into his little ears. "One day, my son, you will walk into your grandfather's house not as an outcast, but as a prince. One day, he will see what he lost." 3 years passed. Zainab was no longer the frightened girl who had been thrown out into the night. She was now a confident young woman, respected in her community. Her tailoring business had grown into a small shop with 2 apprentices. People came from different parts of Lagos to have her make their clothes. And David, now a playful little boy with bright eyes, followed her everywhere. "Mummy, I will be strong for you," he often said in his innocent voice, making her heart swell with pride. Yet, despite her success, Zainab carried one wound deep inside the absence of her father's love. Each time she passed by the luxurious compound of Chief Adewale, she wondered if he ever thought of her. Did he miss her? Did he regret? Or had he erased her from his heart completely? One evening, as she closed her shop, she looked at David running in the yard and whispered to herself, "Papa may have abandoned us, but one day he will see. One day he will know what I have become." That day was closer than she thought, because while Zainab was rising, her father's world was beginning to crumble. The mansion of Chief Adewale, once the pride of Ikoyi, Lagos, now stood like a fading shadow of its former glory. The walls, which used to gleam white, were stained by dust and neglect. The once vibrant garden was now overgrown with weeds, and the fountain at the center of the compound no longer flowed. Inside the large sitting room, silence reigned. The same silence Zainab had felt 3 years ago when she stood trembling before her father, only now it felt heavier, suffocating. Chief Adewale sat alone in his armchair, staring blankly at a glass of palm wine in his hand. His once strong shoulders were hunched, and the sharpness in his eyes had dulled. The years had not been kind to him. It all began after Zainab left. At first, Adewale carried himself with pride, convincing himself he had done the right thing. A man must protect his name, he would tell his friends at the country club. No daughter of mine will bring disgrace under my roof. But slowly, cracks began to show in his empire. His construction company, Adewale & Sons, faced allegations of fraud. Government contracts were seized, and loyal business partners began to distance themselves. One by one, the foundations of his success crumbled. His second wife, Madame Funke, who had once stood beside him in scorn against Zainab, grew restless when the money stopped flowing. She began quarreling over every little thing: food, bills, clothes. Finally, one morning, she packed her bags and left, muttering, "I did not marry poverty." Even his so-called friends disappeared. The same men who used to toast him at parties, calling him Odogwu and Lion of Lagos, no longer answered his calls. His phone, once ringing with invitations, now remained silent. And so, Chief Adewale was left alone in his vast mansion, surrounded only by memories and regrets. One evening, he sat outside on the veranda, the Harmattan wind carrying dust across the compound. He watched the neighborhood children playing football on the street, their laughter echoing into the night. A memory gripped him suddenly, Zainab as a little girl, chasing a ball across this very compound, her laughter sweet and innocent. He closed his eyes, pain searing through his chest. "Zainab, my daughter, where are you now?" he whispered. For the first time in years, tears rolled down the face of the mighty Chief Adewale. But pride still held him captive. Even in his lowest moments, he refused to admit openly that he had wronged her. He clung to the belief that he had acted to protect his family name. Yet, in the stillness of the night, when sleep refused to come, the truth haunted him. He had thrown away the only child who truly loved him. One Sunday morning, he dressed in his old agbada and went to church, something he had not done in years. He sat in the back pew, silent, as the pastor preached about forgiveness and repentance. "Parents, do not provoke your children to anger," the pastor said, his voice booming. "Do not drive them away in pride, for you may lose them forever. And children, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long." The words pierced through Adewale's heart like arrows. He bowed his head, whispering, "God, give me one more chance, just one chance to see her again." But as he walked out of the church, the whispers of the congregation followed him. "Is that not Chief Adewale, the man who drove out his daughter? See how he walks alone now. Pride has brought him down." He pretended not to hear, but each word cut him deeply. Back in his mansion, he stared at the dusty family portraits on the wall. His eyes stopped at Zainab's picture, a younger version of her in a school uniform, smiling brightly. He reached out with trembling fingers, touching the glass. "Zainab, forgive me." His voice broke. "I thought I was protecting our name, but I destroyed my own blood. God help me." But no answer came, only the silence of the empty house. While Adewale's empire crumbled, a different story was unfolding just a few streets away. In Mushin, Zainab's tailoring shop was flourishing. Brightly colored fabrics hung proudly on the walls, sewing machines buzzed as apprentices worked, and satisfied customers left with wide smiles. Her name was spreading across Lagos. Zainab the designer, they called her. And little David, now 3 years old, was the pride of the shop. Customers adored him, often laughing as he played with scraps of fabric or ran to greet them at the door. Life had given Zainab scars, but it had also given her strength. She was becoming everything her father thought she could never be: successful, respected, and loved. And fate was preparing the day when father and daughter would face each other again. That day came sooner than expected, because while Adewale sat in his lonely mansion, an invitation arrived on his doorstep. An envelope, cream-colored, stamped with gold. He opened it with trembling hands and read, "You are cordially invited to the Lagos Community Excellence Awards. Guest of honor, Madam Zainab Adewale, founder of Zainab's Designs." The paper slipped from his hands. His heart pounded. His daughter's name, written with honor, not shame. For the first time in 3 years, hope flickered in his chest. But so did fear. How would he face her? The Civic Center in Lagos Island glittered with lights that night. Luxury cars lined up at the entrance, and elegantly dressed men and women filled the red carpet walkway. It was the annual Lagos Community Excellence Awards, a night where leaders, entrepreneurs, and changemakers were celebrated for their contributions to society. Inside the grand hall, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Traditional drums mixed with the sound of violins, and the scent of jollof rice, grilled fish, and fried plantain floated from the catering tables. Photographers moved back and forth, their cameras flashing as dignitaries posed for pictures. At one corner of the hall, Chief Adewale sat quietly, his once proud figure now humbled by time. He wore a plain agbada, not as luxurious as before, but still carrying the dignity of an elder. His heart beat nervously as he clutched the invitation letter. The words haunted him. Guest of honor, Madam Zainab Adewale. He had read it 100 times, unable to believe it. His Zainab? The daughter he had cast out? The girl he believed would end in disgrace? How was it possible that her name was now being honored before the most important people in Lagos? He shifted in his seat, sweat gathering on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. The hall grew louder as the announcer's voice boomed. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, tonight we celebrate the rising stars of Lagos. Please welcome our guest of honor, a woman who has inspired many with her courage, resilience, and talent, the founder of Zainab's Designs, Madam Zainab Adewale. The hall erupted in applause. A spotlight lit up the entrance, and there she was. Zainab stepped in, wearing a flowing Ankara gown of her own design, her head held high, her confidence radiating across the room. Beside her walked a little boy, dressed neatly in a tiny agbada, holding her hand. His eyes sparkled with innocence, his smile wide as he looked curiously around the hall. The crowd gasped at the sight. Some whispered in admiration, others clapped even louder. Cameras flashed rapidly. But for Chief Adewale, the world seemed to stop. His breath caught in his throat. His hands shook violently. That's her... my daughter. My Zainab. And that boy. Tears welled in his eyes as he realized who the child must be. His grandson? Zainab walked gracefully to the stage, the applause following her every step. She lifted the microphone, her voice steady and clear. Good evening, everyone. 3 years ago, I was just a young girl with nothing but pain and rejection. I had no home, no support, and no one believed in me. But God gave me strength, and He gave me a son. With faith, hard work, and the kindness of strangers, I built what you see today. Tonight, this honor is not for me alone. It is for every woman who has been told she is nothing. It is for every child born into hardship but destined for greatness. The hall roared with cheers. From his seat, Adewale buried his face in his hands, shame and pride crashing together inside him. Every word she spoke pierced his soul. He had called her a disgrace, but here she stood honored, respected, celebrated. When Zainab stepped off the stage, reporters surrounded her, snapping photos, asking questions. Little David clung to her hand, looking overwhelmed. That was when Adewale rose from his chair. His legs trembled as he walked across the hall, his heart pounding louder than the drums. The crowd parted, whispers spreading quickly. Is that not Chief Adewale? The same man who cast her out? What will he say now? Zainab froze as she saw him. Her breath hitched, memories flooding back the night he shouted at her, the night he cast her into the darkness. Her grip tightened on David's hand. "Papa," she whispered, almost too soft to hear. Adewale stopped before her, his tall figure now bent with age, his proud eyes filled with tears. He looked at her, then at the boy beside her. His lips trembled. "Zainab," he said hoarsely, his voice breaking. "My daughter, forgive me." The hall fell silent. Every eye was on them. David looked up curiously at the old man. "Mummy, who is this man?" he asked innocently. Adewale knelt suddenly, tears streaming down his face. He held out his shaking hands to the boy. I am your grandfather, my son. Forgive this foolish old man." Gasps filled the hall. Zainab's eyes brimmed with tears. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it was here, her heart was torn. Could she forgive so easily? Could she let go of the pain, the abandonment, the betrayal? She looked down at David, who stared at her with wide, questioning eyes. "Mummy, is he really my grandfather?" The weight of her son's innocent voice broke the walls around her heart. She nodded slowly, whispering, "Yes, David, he is." Adewale let out a sob of relief, bowing his head to the floor. "Thank you, my daughter. Thank you for not closing your heart forever." The hall erupted in applause once more, but this time, it was not for Zainab's business. It was for a family broken by pride and reunited by grace. That night, as Zainab left the hall, her father walked beside her, holding David's tiny hand. The cameras flashed, the whispers followed, but for once, Zainab did not care. She had returned, not in shame, but in honor. And her father, once blinded by pride, had been shocked into humility by the daughter he had cast aside. The night after the awards ceremony was heavy with silence. Chief Adewale sat alone on the veranda of his old family house in Surulere. The lantern by his side flickered against the warm night breeze. For years, this house had been a place of pride and power, but tonight it was filled with nothing but regret. On the wooden table lay a framed picture of his late wife, Aisha. He picked it up with trembling hands, tears wetting his cheeks. "My Aisha, I failed you," he whispered. "You told me to protect our daughter, to love her no matter what. But my pride, my stubbornness, it blinded me, and I threw her to the wolves." His chest heaved with sobs. Just then, a knock echoed at the gate. He wiped his eyes quickly, straightened his agbada, and tried to compose himself. "Who is there?" he called out. The gate creaked open, and Zainab stepped in, little David by her side. She carried a small bowl of food in her hands, covered with cloth. "Papa," she said softly. Adewale froze, his throat tightening. He rose to his feet, unsure of whether to run to her, fall at her feet, or simply stand still. Zainab placed the bowl on the table. "I made yam porridge tonight. I thought, maybe you would like some." Her voice cracked as she spoke. Adewale stared at her, his lips trembling. "My daughter, after everything I did, you still think of me?" Zainab's eyes filled with tears. "You are still my father. Anger can last for a moment, but blood lasts forever." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the silence heavy, yet healing. Then, David climbed onto Adewale's lap without hesitation, giggling as if nothing had ever been broken between them. "Grandpa, can you tell me a story?" The old man's heart melted completely. He embraced the boy tightly, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Yes, my son, I will tell you a story of mistakes, of forgiveness, and of second chances." Later that night, the three of them sat together under the stars. Adewale told stories of his youth, of Lagos before the skyscrapers, of the river where he learned to fish. David laughed, clapping his little hands, while Zainab listened silently, her heart softening with every word. At one point, Adewale turned to his daughter. His voice trembled as he said, "Zainab, I cannot change the past. I cannot erase the night I wronged you. But if you will allow me, I want to spend the rest of my days making it right. I want to be a father again, and a grandfather." Zainab's tears flowed freely. She reached out, holding his wrinkled hands in hers. "Papa, I wanted your love more than anything, and though your rejection broke me, it also made me strong. If God can forgive, who am I not to forgive you?" They embraced, father and daughter, their tears mingling, washing away years of pain. Weeks turned into months. Zainab's business flourished even more, now with Adewale proudly supporting her at every exhibition and fashion show. He would stand in the front row, clapping the loudest, his voice booming, "That is my daughter, that is my blood." David grew close to his grandfather, running through the family compound with laughter, filling the old house with life again. For Adewale, every moment with his daughter and grandson was a gift, a chance to heal, a chance to redeem himself. One Sunday morning, the family gathered at church. Zainab stood beside her father and her son as the pastor preached about reconciliation. The words seemed written for them alone. Pride can destroy, but humility can rebuild. Families may break, but love has the power to restore. Thanks for watching. Ad Sows. Zainab held her father's hand tightly. David whispered, "Mommy, we are a family now, right?" She smiled through her tears. "Yes, my son, we are whole again." As they walked out into the sunlight, Adewale looked at his daughter with eyes full of gratitude. "Zainab," he said softly, "the world may call me chief, but my greatest title will always be your father. Thank you for giving me back my name." Zainab smiled, her face radiant. "And thank you, Papa, for finally seeing me not as a disgrace, but as your daughter." They walked together, hand in hand, the generations united. For years, their story would be told of a proud father, a rejected daughter, and the day she returned, not in shame, but in glory. And so, the chapter that began with rejection ended with forgiveness, proving that love, though tested, though wounded, always finds a way back home.